Hello there. Welcome back to Westeros.org on YouTube for our commentary on the second episode of House of the Dragon.
We'll start with the usual episode summary. Quite a lot happened in this very long episode.
Yeah, quite a lot going on.
When the episode opens, we have King Aegon in a rage and a fury, smashing up everything in the room, including his father's model of Valyria, and yelling, "I'm the king, and they wanted to attack me. There'll be war." And in contrast, you have a very stricken Alicent that's grieving together for her father, who says, "Well, something good may still come out of this situation."
Pretty cold of him. It doesn't take long for an arrest to be made. Blood carrying the child's head in a bag is caught at one of the gates. And Otto tells Larys to question him despite Aegon's objections. He's certain that it came from Rhaenyra and they don't need to know anything else. Otto also plans to let the realm know that Rhaenyra did it, realizing that it would be of political gain. But Aegon wants nothing of the sort because it would reveal that they were attacked in their own castle and he would look weak. Otto tells him that he already looks weak, but that they can use this against Rhaenyra to strengthen their hand.
From that, we intercut back and forth between Larys questioning Blood, who admits right off that he got hired by Daemon, and then Blood's death at the hands of a silent, furious Aegon. And it's the funerary procession that very theatrically presents the dead Jaehaerys and how Rhaenyra the Cruel has done this. And this reaches a huge furor against Rhaenyra, but also all the commotion really upsets Helena, who seems very distressed.
And after that, we cut to Dragonstone, where we see the news reaching Rhaenyra, and she's horrified by the idea that she has been accused of this murder, insisting that she would never have ordered the murder of a child after just losing her own child, especially, Helena, as she calls her, a complete innocent in this conflict. But even some of her council doubt her, and in the end, when she sits down at the table, her eyes fall on Daemon, and she realizes that he's suspiciously silent.
Yeah, very quiet. So she questions him. He says, "Yes, I sent men after Aemon, but I didn't say anything about killing a small child. No. But, we saw him say, we heard Blood say he said a son for a son.
But technically, he didn't say kill a small child.
No. Rhaenyra finally says that she now knows she cannot trust Daemon, and she kind of voices her suspicions that he still covets the throne. And he replies, his brother was a coward, and that Viserys made her his heir, not because she had any great talent, but just because she would never outshine his own legacy. Because he knew that Daemon was stronger. Daemon was a leader of men.
In King's Landing, we have other problems going on where Alicent seeks out Cole to assure herself that he hasn't told anyone. And Cole, who gets to be in a quite bad mood over that, I guess, takes it out on poor Sir Auric and ends up insisting that he should go to Dragonstone alone and try and kill Rhaenyra by posing as his twin brother.
Yeah, really digging in deep, kind of twisting the knife and say, "Oh, you bear some blame. You have to fix this."
And he really feels like he's kicking himself. He should be kicking himself, and
after that, we get a scene of Aemon with that brothel madam from the first season, if you'll remember, who was his first time. Aegon had taken him to her, and
apparently his second, third, and fourth, and fifth
resumed his relationship with her. He's feeling quite guilty about the death of Jaehaerys, since the men were originally sent for him. But he is flattered that Daemon thinks he's dangerous enough to kill.
In his sleep, no less.
In his sleep, no less.
Yeah.
And he also admits that he regrets what happened to Luke. We also have the brothel madam saying something about how when princes fight,
when they lose their temper.
When they lose their temper, it's a small folk that suffer, which is
shades of Talisa.
A lot of small folk have opinions.
Yeah, they do. In the next scene, we actually see some of the small folk. We see Hugh and his wife worrying about the cost of food because of the blockade, and it turns out that they also have a sick daughter who's not doing particularly well, and obviously they're concerned about getting enough nutrition into her. So,
and then another scene that introduces Alan's brother, Adam. Alan does not want to go to sea again with Corlys, but Adam insists that he should accept anything that Corlys offers him, because he owes them both, which seems to confirm that they know that they're his sons.
Yeah, and it seems that Adam is the more spirited of the
Yeah.
two. Also, out with the blacks, we have Rhaenyra, who has Mysaria brought up from the dungeons and questions her about her role in the murder. She insists that Daemon wanted names in return for her freedom, and that's all that she gave him. And then she tells Rhaenyra about her past and how she only started collecting information to survive, and then suffered for it when she showed her teeth to Otto Hightower, and he decided to burn down her house.
Then we come back to King's Landing, and this is my favorite scene where Aegon first has all the rat catchers in the city killed, and we see the dog under Cheese. It's very loyal, and
despite being kicked.
Despite having been kicked, Otto is furious. He has now made enemies out of the Smallfolk, and tells them, "You've thrown away all the goodwill, everything you tried to gain from the death of Jaehaerys." And he asks Aegon, does he really think that Viserys wanted him to be the king? Aegon then demands Otto resign. This is obviously something that Loras put into his head, and he makes of all, Criston Cole of all people, his hand.
Yes, and poor Otto looks very suffering through the whole.
And this is also where he informs him that because Criston came up with the brilliant idea of sending.
Sending Auric to Dragonstone, and you can just see the poor Otto taking a deep sigh.
Great performance from Mercy Fans. It really it reminds me a lot of how Tywin reacts to Joffrey, and I don't recall how it's played in Game of Thrones, but I remember in the book how it plays out, and how Tywin is such a controlled, like there's just a twitch, and and that Tyrion can read it. Oh, he's really concerned. It really bothers him. But here, Ifans has no problem showing his Otto isn't holding his cards so close. He's at his wit's end. Like, how can we manage this?
He declares at one point that yes, the king is my when he is told by Cole to respect the king. Well, the king is my grandson, and my grandson is a fool.
Great stuff. Really great. Absolutely the best performance of the episode, I think. He was so good.
Yeah. So back again on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra lets Mysaria go and has her escorted to a ship that will take her to the Free Cities. She doesn't trust to have her around, but on the way out, Mysaria is confused. She had just left Eric behind in the castle, and now he walks past her again from the other direction. Well, that, of course, is Auric, who's come there to kill Rhaenyra. And we follow him into the castle, and he eventually gets into Rhaenyra's apartments, but Eric shows up. He appears to have been searching for him, so Mysaria seems to have tipped him off. And in the end, after they fight, Eric kills his twin, but then he can't live with himself, and he commits suicide by falling on his sword.
The episode ends up in King's Landing with Otto and Alicent discussing how unmanageable Aegon is, and how dangerous it is that Criston Cole is now the hand. He says, he trusts in, I think, steel and bone. He doesn't have the long view. So Otto says, I'm no use here. I'll go to Old Town, where my nephew is raising an army, and where Alicent has a more biddable son, a more teachable, instructable son named Daeron. Yay, vitally mentioned by name. But he may be of help in the weeks to come. Alicent tries to confess her sins to Otto, but he simply will not hear of it.
Otto's had enough for this episode. He can't take any more. So next up we have looking at some of the changes from the book material, and the assassination attempt of Rhaenyra. Actually, in the books we have it's the king and the small council who come up with the idea and who approve it, whereas here it's Cole on his own who comes up with it, who sends Auric away, and it seems he does it without talking to the king first. He informs the king later of what he has done. And Aegon, of course, buys it wholesale and is happy with the idea.
Right.
But as we see in the scene with Aegon and Cole and Otto, Otto is less pleased.
Without asking me, without informing the small council. So that's a bit of a change.
Certainly, everyone seems to have felt that it was a pretty smart plan to have him pose as his twin to try and get in. And of course, this shifts also the blame entirely over to Cole and Aegon, that they would stoop to assassination rather than having, for example, Alicent involved, who almost certainly would not approve, even in this circumstance, of an assassination attempt, I think.
You mean in the show?
Yes.
Okay, yes, because I mean, in the book, she's part of a small council. I think.
Exactly.
Yes,
so,
yes,
I mean, if they had it before the small council, Alicent would have been there, and I'm not sure they could have given that she
could have been. Everyone else could have agreed, and she could have disapproved, I suppose. But
yes,
Otto wouldn't have, though. I don't think Otto would have. Even if it's a smart idea, I think he was trying to find some way to end it quickly, and I think he feels like that kind of. I think he sees, obviously, if that fails, it's not, even if it succeeds, even if they kill Rhaenyra, does it really end it? There's still Daemon, there's still Jace. It just means there's not going to be any resolution that is outside of war. So yeah, but no, it's an interesting point.
Yeah. So, but here they go with it just being in Cole and Aegon.
Right. So another change, sort of. It's Cheese. We see is killed. All the rat catchers are hanged.
And it's explicitly made sure that we know that he is there, because the dog is there.
The dog is there. We see him hanging there.
Hanging, yes.
But in the book, it said, his name disappears from history. Aegon does the same thing. He has all the rat catchers killed. It could well be that he was among the rat catchers, but it's possible that he actually managed to get away.
Yeah.
It's never clear. The histories don't know.
And also, Blood in this episode is killed very quickly by Aegon. Pretty merciful compared to what we have in the books, where it said that he is tortured for 13 days before dying. And here,
dying from torture, basically. Not
and here Aegon gets a
mace
and makes it a short process.
So then we have the brothers of Adam and Alan of Hull. They haven't said this yet, but Adam is played by Clinton
Adam
Liberty.
does say he is one of the shipwrights coming up from Hull.
Yeah, exactly.
So we know that.
Clinton Liberty plays Adam, and Abu Bakr Salim plays Alan. Their ages, I think we remarked in the previous that for Alan, but now here as well, they don't seem to be. There's no way they can pretend that these are Laenors. That's not possible. I mean, Laenor would be about the same age as them. I also get the sense from the way we're interacting that they're swapping them around. But Alan is the older brother and Adam is the younger.
Yes.
I mean, the actor, certainly that's a relationship with the actors. Clinton Liberty is like 5 years younger than Abu Bakr Salim. They're close enough, 26 and 31 in age, where they could pretend either way. But I think I could see why they would do it. And yet at the same time, there are aspects of that story where Adam being the heir makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. On the other hand, we have, we see that their personalities are fairly different as well, and I think just their ages, that they are going to play them differently, with them both being, because there's no way they're playing the ages that they are in the books. So I think all of that changes the characters and how they're going to use them, I think. We also have a scene where we see Adam on the beach watching a dragon flying overhead and sort of coming towards him, and that is sea smoke.
It looked like sea smoke.
It certainly looks like sea smoke.
That makes sense. Sea smoke is supposed to be on Driftmark.
Yeah, so they are, it seems, setting up perhaps that he's going to be sea smoke's next rider, although how that's technically supposed to work when Laenor is not actually dead.
He could be. I mean, we don't know.
Sure.
Or they could decide that the dragon doesn't know, even if they're bonded, they don't have some sort of sense of across time and distance of. Yeah,
like, I got abandoned. I gotta find myself a new rider.
We have Eric killing himself. That's a bit of a change from the. We have two main accounts. Munkin says that it was a long duel, and both brothers killed one another and died tearfully in one another's arms. And then we have Mushroom saying it was very quick, over in moments. The brothers cursing and denouncing one another, and I think it was Auric has his arm chopped off, but manages to stab his dagger into his brother's belly, and he's dead. I guess he bleeds out from his wounds. By the time the guards arrive, and Eric spends his last days dying a horrible, agonizing death, cursing his traitors for the entire time. This can be certainly. I can certainly see.
They take elements of.
Yeah, they take elements of that, like the way that Eric and Auric. I mean, there is the stab into the body, and but the suicide. I can understand the idea that the suicide would be. When you think about Fire and Blood as a history, and our recent interview with Ryan Condal talking about what's propaganda, what's real, what are the stories, what are this idea that this doesn't show up in the book. I don't think this is what George actually intended, that he commits suicide. But I can kind of see that if he did kill himself because he couldn't stand it, you could see it's just a shame, and for him, I doubt the faith looks well on suicides. But we'll say he just died nobly in defense of his queen, and then Mushroom. I mean, Mushroom would have been able to say, oh no, he couldn't bear it and he killed himself. But then Mushroom likes making it as lurid as possible. Mushroom might have been. I don't know. It's interesting to think in that aspect.
Yeah, but it also I think is a practical tying up of a loose end for a TV show. That means they don't have to revisit a dying Eric. Like he died a few years later or something. It just cuts out one thing less thing to deal with. So it could partially be that. There's one aspect in this episode where we're starting to see that some characters, I've already touched upon the fact that obviously Adam and Alan feel like they're quite different from their book counterparts. And then we have some characters that sort of tie into the whole the small folk, where they are portraying. I mean, like I said when we were going over the recap, it has a little bit of a shade of Talisa when Aemon's brothel madam starts criticizing what the actions of nobles and the effect they have on small folk. We get the same from Mysaria a little bit in the previous episode, a bit more in this one. Hugh comes off as Hugh we get is a very specific slice of him. So I can assume is what the idea is, that they are going to be depicting the journey from the Hugh we see now, who's just an honest smith trying to make a living, trying to keep his family fed and safe, to the fellow that we get in Fire and Blood. But there are still some.
At the same time, there could also be in fact, that's propaganda too. Of course, the historians are going to paint him, this peasant, as being this horribly unhonorable person, because he's not of noble blood, and he wouldn't have any nobility in him.
Yes, I mean, certainly when you see somebody who is, struggling to make ends meet because of the blockade and has a sick daughter, you can sort of start putting two and two together, where they are likely to be going with tragedies in his future for his family.
Yeah.
Seems pretty likely.
To drive him to be a different person. But
yes, but they are using him as one of the characters to sort of focus in on the plight of the small folk. And I feel like that we get a little much telling rather than showing in the small folk situation. I like the scene with the rat catchers. That was a really good showing rather than telling of seeing how people would react to that sort of abuse by the king.
Yeah.
And the scene with Hugh and his family feels a little heavy-handed, and then we have Mysaria and we have the brothel madam.
They definitely don't. They aren't afraid of themes. It's a theme. They're making the point of it.
Yeah.
I think it maybe is I also think it's a little heavy-handed. It's a little much. But there's some members of the audience who maybe don't think about it unless they're repeatedly told about it. So
yes, but again, like Mysaria, I find it hard at this point to see how she'd get the name the White Worm, and it's not something like this just the histories give her, because characters do refer to her.
Yeah,
as the White Worm.
she wears white, and the idea is that she was a keeper and spreader of secrets.
But worm.
Whoa, worm! It's like worm tongue. It's
yes, but it is very negative.
Yeah, but it is partly because she's an albino in the book, and also she's a foreigner. I mean, she is a foreigner still, and she is also a spy master who's trades in secrets and nasty things. But it also gives you an implication that there's something ruthless and cruel about her,
It sort of does,
which certainly later on is supposed to play out.
And here she's just saying that she's she did what she had to survive, and she's kind of blameless.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out.
Let's move on to some background. On the Kingsguard and ages of knights, because here we learn, this is show-only information. I don't know that George would agree. I'm not sure, but here we have it that Eric and Auric were selected at the age of 18.
Yeah.
Now this is very notable. There's an additional detail that could have been noted. This would have made them the youngest Kingsguard knights up to that point in time.
True, and that probably should have been noted if it was the intention, basically.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, the Cargill brothers are celebrated, it said. Yeah. But I think as much because they're both skilled and they're twins. But were they that great? Who's younger after them? Well, Aemon the Dragon Knight. Now, he's an actual legendary knight. He was 17, which is the same age that Loras is.
And he was noted to be the youngest at the time.
Yeah. Well, we know he's 17. It's George's notes that tell us that he was the youngest up to that point in time, but that makes sense. And then, Jaime Lannister is the youngest after that.
And of course, there we know that it wasn't entirely motivated by
how good he was.
It was so yes, 18 would have been quite remarkable for them to be selected that young, and maybe they were just because somebody thought it would be really cool to have a couple of twin.
Actually, there would have been Roland Darkland. Actually, I forgot about him. After Aemon, he's supposed to have been 16.
That's
the youngest up to that point in time. We don't know where he fits. He dies. I kind of like the idea that he was like Maekar era, but we don't really know. No. And then there's Ginny. So, dragon facts.
Yeah, we don't get too much new. We see Daemon riding off on Caraxes. We get a cool shot of him coming out of his cave there with his full armor and the saddle on Caraxes and everything. And obviously from our interview with Ryan, I now paid particular attention again to the saddles. So we know that was put on Caraxes at a young age, and or the fittings where you put the saddle on were kind of permanently set on the dragon, and then and it's interesting to think about because taking saddles on and off, Valgar and Valyrian, it wouldn't work, I don't think. You'd need a crane or something.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult.
So I think George might think this is a good solution, that they were basically
prepared to
permanently
mounting
installed.
Points installed, basically.
Yeah.
And then we get Moondancer being assigned a job, which kind of tells us Moondancer is large enough now. Obviously, if you've seen the trailers, you see it, but to particularly do a job of going off to King's Landing and patrolling and keeping an eye on things. So that's Moondancer now expected to be able to fly hundreds of miles, hang around, gliding around for a few hours, and then go back.
Obviously, Bela is aged up quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Moondancer is also aged up.
Because in the books, Moondancer is not ridden for most of the war. Is also on the verge of being rideable, but no more. So that gives them one more potentially fighting dragon, actually.
Right. Now, we asked questions from fans, and one of the questions that we got a few times on Twitter and elsewhere is people asking what we thought of the opening credits and what each thing meant. And particularly the very beginning is kind of mysterious to a lot of people, so I thought we could discuss that image, or some of those images to begin with, and kind of see.
It is certainly a very cool opening sequence. I
think
a great
we
already said that. One thing I forgot to say last time is that obviously the first thing that popped into my head was, the Wheel of Time kind of did a tapestry sort of thing already. Other than that, I've mostly forgotten all about.
It's very thematic.
But this was very cool. Obviously, it has much more of a bio tapestry look, and looks like a proper tapestry, and
I really love to interview a company because their website actually features it, and they discuss it a little bit of how they do it. But I don't understand how it actually. It'd be lovely to see them do an actual breakdown of. They talk like they have these points, various colors, and then they orient them, and then their software does the whole extrusion of. I don't know. That's the magic to me.
Yeah, it looks really cool, and yeah, I'd love to see some merchandise with scenes from that.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
actually.
Ryan joked that he's at the bed sheets or blankets with it.
Yeah.
I think also he said, if you haven't seen our interview with him, it's pretty cool. He says that the project manager on U Plus Co's side was like a super book nerd, and she brought some ideas. So what he says is that this is built on some of what they knew from the history. There's some of the things George mentioned to them, and some of the ideas they brought to the table, and they kind of mixed it up. So
there may be some Easter eggs hiding in there that we
yeah,
haven't quite picked up on yet. It starts with, or early on, we see a man with a blade and a person holding up their hands to a sort of dragon-human creature bathed in flames, and this probably indicates the origins of the ties between the Valyrians and the dragons, where blood and fire magic was used to essentially combine their flesh in some way.
Yeah, to me, I think the fact that the dragon...
Early DNA editing.
The dragon has a human head.
Yeah.
To me, that's not just a bonding. That's like that there is something human in them. So when the dragon lords say, we have the blood of dragons or the blood of dragoness, I think there is in some literal sense that there is an intermingling.
Yeah.
Not. I mean, I know that they asked the actors at some point on one of these things, and they said,
nobody screwed a dragon.
Bestiality? No, it can't be possible. But no, magic, blood magic, fire magic. I think might have allowed them to do that kind of thing.
Yes, DNA resequencing.
We'd kind of know of these strange creatures, the sphinxes and such, but the Valyrian blood mages seem to have almost sort of used their magic to manipulate flesh in the way that the fire magic's manipulated fire.
And certainly the idea is that, they used the the wyverns, I think, was the idea, or the fireworms.
The fireworms and wyverns together.
And so that the dragons are not natural creatures. They are creatures of magic, which we obviously see when they can't fly over the wall.
And of course, then there's a question, like we have this idea that there are accounts claiming that there are dragons that existed long before the Valyrians, that they came, actually, there's claims that dragons came from beyond the shadow in the east. Who says that's true?
Or maybe
it's all lost in mysticism.
Maybe there's two types of dragons. I mean, maybe there are actual natural dragons, and then there are Valyrian created dragons.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Then we have a person seeming dead or asleep. I think it's asleep in the arms of another person. And they're on the back of a dragon. It looks kind of reddish, but it's hard to tell the color of that dragon. We think, as I think many have come to the conclusion, this is literally representing Daenerys, a dreamer, asleep, dreaming, and being held by her father while we're flying to Dragonstone. You can actually see what I think is the outline of Dragonstone, the citadel of Dragonstone, like just above them, like they're flying away. So she's dreamed. So this is like, and here's Daenerys. She's dreamed. Her father is taking her away to safety.
Yeah, it's kind of combining all those events into one. Basically, her dream.
One symbolic image.
In one symbolic image was quite cool.
Which is also very appropriate. I mean, I remember. Do I want to say Scott McCloud. Very. I'm almost sort of Scott McCloud. Great comic artist who wrote a book about sort of the theory of comics, and he talks about a big section is sort of how we've had comics going back to ancient times. How we could look at the cavern paintings as or the Egyptian walls and showing these stories and going on. I think sequences and things that kind of represent symbolically or connecting all together, telling a story that if you knew the history, you would understand. And this is a story of this. It says when you look at the black or red vases from Greece, you have, or from like the Etruscan ones, this is Achilles fighting Patroclus, and this is Troilus and Cressida, and there's this whole story of what aspects of it that we've lost, but we can tell that this meant it was a meaningful story. So
and it can have a shorthand to it in that it combines in this one scene many elements from that story, because it can have symbolism and all that. So it's a really cool way of doing it.
Of course, to underscore that I think this is Daenerys and Aegon flying away, escaping, we have the Doom of Valyria, the 14 flames erupting, dragons falling out of the sky. This is very much how it's described in A Dance with Dragons.
And then we are back in Westeros and Dragonstone again, or we see Aegon and his sisters. The ships are sailing below them. We see them flying on their dragons, presumably going from Dragonstone to land in Westeros and begin the conquest. And we see the colors, of the dragons. We've got the Valyrian, we've got silver Meraxes, and we've got green Vargar.
And then the violence of the conquest. This might specifically be Harren the Black and his sons. And including the suggestion that Valyrian and Valgar burned Harrenhal, which is a change because Valyrian alone in the book.
I wonder if they want to make something
more
of that, given that Vargar is still around.
Yeah. And then there's the Orange, Starks, and Tullys bending the knee. And I noticed that Shara Orange, she was a Dowager Queen, has like a diadem on, and Torhin has a crown. Although I noticed I made this for legibility, it's kind of pale, both of them like silver-looking crowns. Obviously, a proper crown for a Stark King was a bronze and black iron, so that's not quite right. But Lord Tully obviously does not have diadem. He wasn't the king.
No. After that, we see Maegor the Cruel killed on the Iron Throne, or by the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
We have Jaehaerys and Alysanne, and then the older Jaehaerys at the Great Council.
I think pretty much a representation of the image at the end of that opening to the first episode.
Right,
of
because
him
they're actually starting
with Corlys and Rhaenys and with
and then it goes over to events, the present events of the show, leading to the the sending off of the ravens and the dragons to win allies.
And then you have a bunch of shields around representing various houses. I really need to look at them. I can recognize some, but some of them are very hard to make out.
It's not that.
It's kind of all blurred and so on. So. And finally, we get the death of Arax and Lucerys at the hands of Aemon and the jaws of Vhagar. So
it is it's a living tapestry that is,
and Ryan suggested that we would also have but over time it may also shift the emphasis of like the scene that shows Daenerys the Dreamer and Aegon. Maybe that'll shift and we'll see some other aspect of that image that we don't see initially. So
that's where I'm thinking there might be little things hidden.
And now we have a misbehaving dog, so I think that's about time to...
Yes, they heard something and wanted to have a say on matters, so...
we will leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that for now, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.